Jane and Mark had $240 altogether. When Jane gave Mark half of her money, Mark had 4 times as much money as Jane. And we're asked, how much did Jane have at first? And B, how much did Mark have at first? Okay, so you might be thinking, not sure how to draw this. So I know we're going to have Jane and Mark. Um, when Jane gave Mark half of her money, how do I know what that's all going to look like? So this is how I think I would just draw, then start with what I can draw, what I can be confident that I can draw. So we've got Jane and we've got Mark. And when Jane gave Mark half of her money, Mark had 4 times as much money as Jane. So I'm going to draw the after situation first. So in the after situation, we give Jane 1 bar like this. And after, Mark had 4 times as much as Jane. So here we go. This is if Mark had the same, but he's got 4 times. So that would be 1, that's 2, 3, and 4. Okay, that's after. All right. Now, that's this bit here. I've got that bit. Now, it says that when Jane gave Mark half of her money, all right, Mark had this amount. That means that this is half of what Jane had at the beginning. Now, which means that Jane had at the beginning 2 of these parts. Okay, so can you see how easy that was to visualize when you just started with the bit that you could see was easy to draw? Okay, now let's just label this very quickly before we lose track of what we were thinking. So what is this? This is what Jane had at the start. Okay, and this, let's choose a different color. This is what Mark had at the end, isn't it? Because that's where I started drawing, and this is what Jane had at the end. This is where I started, and I suppose I could have labeled it at that point. Okay. Right, so that's the end and that's the end. But at the start, Jane must have had this. And if this is what she gave to Mark, which is, all of these parts are equal, okay, then Mark, this is what, here we go, we'll do it here. Mark must have had this at the start. These 3 parts here, okay? Can you see that's, how easy that is to see once you've drawn it out? So where are our questions? How much did Jane have at first? Okay, well, this is A, all right? How much did Jane have at first? And B is how much did Mark have at first? Okay, so this is B. How much did Mark have at first? Okay, well, let's do some calculating. And what we probably need to do is, because it says Jane and Mark had $240 all together. But what this model does is capture one of these blocks. We have to be really careful here. One of these blocks is being shown twice. Okay, so what we ought to do is shade it in. Okay, that's what Jane gave Mark, to be very sure that we know how many parts are in this model. Okay, if I didn't do this, can you see how easy it would be to count all of these parts and count this one basically twice? Okay, I need to draw it in. I need to draw to show the beginning and I need to show the end. but I do need to be really careful. So let's now put the amount in. So we've got, this whole model represents $240. How many parts are there? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. So 240, if I divide that by 5, I get 48. Okay, so each of these parts has a value. Going to go for a different color again. 48, 48, 48, 48, 48. Now I can label this one 48. All right. And I want to, because I want to work out this start value. I just needed to make sure that I didn't sort of count it twice when I was calculating how many units 240 represented. Okay, so let's go and look at our question then. So question A, to do question A, we are going to do 48 times 2, which gives us 96. So $96 is how much Jane had at first. And how much did Mark have at first? Well, that was the end. At the start, he had these 3 here. So for question B, we are doing 48 times 3. Okay. Or what you could also do is, you've already got 48 plus 2. You could do 96 plus 48 if you liked. That would be completely up to you. But either way you do it, you are going to get an answer of 144. Okay, so that's the answer to B. Okay, right. I hope that made sense.